Hey guys, it's Malibu. Welcome back to my channel. Today, as you can see by the title, I want to talk about some of those times where people haven't realised that I'm transgender when getting intimate with me. I have said before on this channel, when I was younger, I was a massive slut. And so, I have a lot of funny stories to tell. I need to stop laughing at myself. I was thinking about this earlier actually, and I think I became such a slut because I was almost compensating for the lack of sexual experience that I had when I was younger, when I didn't really know how to find men that were interested in trans women. I wasn't on any of the dating apps, which was really the main way I found most of my men. And kind of all my friends were sexually active when I was sort of like 14, 15. And I wasn't really, apart from a couple of occasions. But yeah, there's been a lot of times in the past where I've been getting down and dirty with a man and they haven't even realised that I was transgender. I am in a happy relationship now, so these stories are old. I've been in a relationship for like 3 years. But yeah, try to remember some of the most funny times when this happened, so let's get into it. The worst one that springs to mind, I'll start with the worst. Let me preface this by saying the majority of the men who realised kind of too late didn't actually care. I think actually a lot of men in general don't care. I remember one time I had a guy, we did bits, and then afterwards he told me, I didn't realise you were trans. I was like, what do you mean? We just had sex. And he was like, yeah, I didn't realise that you had bits and bobs until we were doing it. And I was like, oh, you didn't say anything. I had no idea that you were even like shocked. He was like, oh, here's what it is. This is a new experience. I was like, okay. He just obviously got on with it and didn't care. I mean, it's the polite thing to do really, isn't it? But I've definitely had that happen where like people have been shocked, but they'll at least be like, oh, you've got a... And I'm like, yeah, I've got a thing. But this one time, like I say, I'm going to start with the worst. This guy was not happy. So I'd met him in a club or a bar, I can't remember exactly where. And he'd obviously taken a fancy to me. Bought me a few drinks, got me going, and decided he wanted to take me home. Well, I was back to his hotel room actually, with his two friends, which was really awkward. Because when we got back to the hotel room, his two friends were just sat outside the hotel room, literally in the corridor, just waiting for us to like finish. Should I be making this video? My boyfriend is going to be appalled. Anyway, we got into the hotel room, started getting down and dirty, and when I took my underwear down, he was very shocked with what he saw. He was like, oh, you're trans, or I don't remember exactly what he said. He might have been rude. I don't think he was that rude actually. And I was like, yeah, didn't you realise? And he was like, no. And I was like, oh, you thought I had a pussy? He was like, yeah. And he was like, yeah, I'm not into that. And I was like, oh, well that's really awkward there, me with my pants down, like, okay. So I like quickly got dressed, left, and I had to walk past his friends in the corridor. Like this was like maybe 5 minutes after I'd gone in. They were pissing themselves. I don't know whether they knew. I mean, I sometimes wonder because I don't think it's that hard to tell, but it's hard to be objective about yourself. I always think I'm clockable, but yeah, that was embarrassing. That's probably the only time when I've been like truly embarrassed. Well, not even embarrassed because I was drunk. I didn't even care that much. I just laughed and it was what it was. I do remember another time where I literally met this guy in a gay bar, OMG in Bristol, LGBT bar, whatever you want to call it. So I assumed that he just knew I was trans. I know that cis women do hang out in gay bars with, gay friends, whatever. So it's not completely out of the question that maybe he didn't know, but I obviously just assumed he knew. We get back to his. I think I was like sucking him off, and then I got undressed and it was apparent that he didn't know. I was quite sassy with this one. I remember being like, you picked me up from fucking OMG. He was like, what do you mean? And I was like, well, it's like a fucking LGBT bar. What did you expect? And then he was like, oh, I didn't even know. He just obviously wandered in there drunk. Anyway, he was a bit like, oh, I'm not sure, but he also still wanted me to like suck his dick. I remember thinking he was a bit of a dick. If he didn't know, fine. It was probably a bit of a surprise to him. But like, he didn't stop me and he like kicked me out. And I was like, that's really rude. Actually, I think I made him walk me. No, that was someone else. Oh God, loads of memories are just rushing back to me now. I'm trying to think what is actually relevant to this video. I feel like when you spend enough time with me, it becomes obvious, or it will come up in conversation, or somebody else that I'm with will tell you. And it's like, okay, so by the time you actually go home with them, you just either assume they know or you know that they know. There's obviously been a couple of occasions, like I just told you, where obviously I assumed wrong. It is quite funny when you just get the annoying guys chatting you up before you've even like had a proper conversation with them, and it's like, oh my god, leave me alone. I remember a time when I just turned around and go to him, do you realise I've got a dick? And then he just left me alone. That's a good way to get rid of a guy. Whether you're trans or not, you could use that one. Oh my god, I just remembered another time. I'm really bad at storytelling, guys, don't mind me. I remember this guy rescued me once from a guy that was chasing me. Different story. He took me into a bar with him and his friend, got us a bottle of wine or something. We were sat chilling, he was obviously like flirting with me. I think I was like crying because I'd just been rescued and I just didn't want to deal with that whole conversation. I could tell that his friend had clocked me, and then he was like saying to his friend, oh, can we, like, we need to go to the toilet together, like he needed to tell him something. I just could tell that he was going to go tell him that I'm trans, or that he thinks I'm trans, whatever. And it was going to be, they were going to come back and it was going to be really awkward. So I just legged it. I think I grabbed the bottle of wine and I legged it. Yeah, I was quite chaotic when I was younger. Especially on a night out. The worst thing is when you have a guy who doesn't know and they'll obviously realise, and then you have to like try and explain yourself. It's like, why do I have to explain myself to you? You're the one hitting on me. I mean, all of my dating profiles on any apps say I'm trans. I've never tried to hide it from anyone. So it's always annoying when they don't know. Do you know what I mean? I suppose when there's an occasion where you've met someone out, you're more inclined to give them the benefit of the doubt because, of course, fair enough, maybe we haven't spoken about it and I've just assumed that you knew. Oh my god, I just remembered another one. Oh, this one was really bad actually. So I was going home with this guy. We also met in OMG, so like should have probably known. But I think I started the conversation up on the walk home because I was like, I'm not sure if he knows. So I told him I'm trans, and he was like, no you're not. And I was like, yeah I am. And he was like, what do you mean? You've got a cock? And I was like, yeah. I was like, didn't you realise that? And he was like, no. And then we kept walking for a little bit, and while he was just obviously soaking in the information, and then he just runs off screaming down the street. I was like, what? He was obviously like, no, I'm not doing that, and just ran off screaming down the street. And I was like, oh, okay, I'll just go home then. That one wasn't fun. It is definitely better if you have that conversation to make sure that the people know. I guess when you're really drunk and you're out on a night out, sometimes you just forget or you assume that they know. I've just remembered a time where someone didn't care. In fact, I've just remembered two. They're less interesting though. The only reason why I remember one of them is because it was on a night out where I lost my shoes. Well, my shoes broke, I had to ditch my shoes. So I ended up going back to this guy's house without any shoes. Well, I had the whole night out without any shoes, actually. It was just the only reason why I remember this. But I remember him being like, oh, I can't believe you're trans. It's like after we had sex. I stayed in his bed even. But like, we obviously didn't. Some guys just don't care. Taxi drivers don't tend to care either. Like, taxi drivers will sleep with anyone. If you know, you know. I'm not encouraging being a slut. I'm not encouraging sleeping with taxi drivers, but I have a lot of funny memories. It's definitely always a little bit awkward when people don't know. I can remember this feeling so well, like when a guy was hitting on me and like I'm not sure whether he knows I'm trans or not. It's always really awkward to bring that up and to say, oh, you do realise I'm trans, or like, do you know I'm trans or whatever. It's obviously something that a cis woman doesn't have to worry about. I mean, we don't always want these men to be hitting on us, but it's definitely another struggle that trans people have to go through, having to think about whether this person knows or not. And also obviously, like I've just explained, times where you might think that they know and they don't actually know. So unfortunately, it is often a conversation that we have to have with these guys. If you're on a dating app or something like that, you've got to just make it really clear. Then you avoid these awkward situations. Thankfully, like I said, I'm in a happy relationship now, so I don't have to deal with any of this anymore. But yeah, remembering some of these things is a little bit triggering, I can't lie. But it did also give me a bit of a cackle. Gosh, I really was crazy when I was younger. It's reminded me of so many other things that like are unrelated. Gosh, I could not live that lifestyle anymore. I'm an old hag now. I'm not, I'm 30. 30 feels really old, do you know what I mean? I couldn't be out doing this shit anymore. I'm so glad that I've got my Richard and I don't have to deal with this bullshit. If you do end up in these awkward situations, don't freak out. It's not that big of a deal. Life goes on. As long as nobody gets hurt. I guess that's another thing to worry about though. You have to be really careful because some of these people might be extremely transphobic. and you could be putting yourself in danger. Like I say, I don't recommend going out doing these things. I've done it for you, so you don't have to. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this shit show of a video. It was a bit all over the place, I know. I'm not the best storyteller, but I hope you found some of this amusing. It amused me at least anyway. If you did enjoy, don't forget to give it a like, and if you're new here, subscribe, and I will be back with my next video very soon, guys. Bye bye.